As the year of One Piece comes to a close, Eiichiro Oda has dropped an absolute bombshell on us. If you have not read One Piece chapter 1134, incredibly large spoilers incoming. It looks like those of us who thought Shanks has an evil twin were proven correct. This video is going to be a huge comprehensive breakdown on everything we know about this new mysterious character, what their impact on the story will be, and even trying to figure out who they really are. So once again, if you have not caught up with the One Piece manga, please go read the newest chapter, or if you're anime only, click off of this video, although it's probably already too late. So, first of all, I know I just said that this is Shanks' evil twin, but how do we actually know that? Well, when I read this chapter, one thing was absolutely clear to me, regardless of whether this was Shanks or his evil twin, but this character at the end of chapter 1134, I am certain is the same exact character that we saw in chapter 907, the quote-unquote Shanks that went to visit the Gorosei and tell them about a certain pirate. The framing of these panels where both of these Shanks are facing one direction where we can't see the scar, and also the cloak that they are wearing is identical. I think this is a deliberate choice by Oda to show us that these two are the exact same character. Now the question is, if these two people are the same character in both of these chapters, is it the Shanks we know and love, or is it someone else? Well, luckily for us, in that chapter 907 conversation between this mysterious Shanks and the Gorosei, there's actually a bit of dialogue that clues us in as to who this is. The Gorosei say, "You came all this way," which kind of implies that this is the pirate Shanks that we know and love, because a pirate would have to travel a very long distance to get to the inconvenient location of Marijua where the Gorosei are stationed. However, unfortunately for us, also in this panel, there's some dialogue that suggests this might not be Shanks, where the Gorosei say, "You have no interest in politics." Obviously, they could be referring to Shanks here because he's a pirate, he should have no interest in politics, but this could also mean that a God's Knight, or someone higher up in the ranks of the world government, has no interest in politics because they are sworn loyal to Imu, and they should have no interest in the nuance of small political discussions between nations in the One Piece world. So, the 907 chapter where the Shanks goes to talk to the Gorosei doesn't exactly let us know which version of Shanks this is. However, the end of the recent chapter, assuming these two characters are the same like I previously said, kind of locked in for me that this is not Shanks, and let me explain. The most obvious telling is that this mysterious Shanks came out of a Gorosei summoning circle, or an Imu summoning circle, or some kind of summoning circle that we have only seen used by those who are loyal to Imu. This immediately, to me, means that this mysterious Shanks character is on the side of the Gorosei and on the side of Imu, and I am so positive that our Shanks, the Shanks we know and love, is not on Imu's side. The reason I say this is because we have gotten earnest, good-to-God Shanks character moments where we see the values he truly stands for, and all of those values are just so vehemently against the world government that I refuse to believe that Shanks is some kind of double agent. Shanks stopping Green Bull at Wano, telling him not to be afraid of the new era, Shanks stopping the war to prevent any other casualties from happening at Marineford, Shanks going to Whitebeard to stop Ace from following Blackbeard. Everything Shanks has done in the series has been from a point of self-defense and maintaining the peace. We've seen Shanks' true character, his true beliefs that protecting the weak is what a real man does. I just refuse to believe that same Shanks we've gotten such a strong glimpse at throughout the story is working for someone like Imu, who is very obviously painted as the most evil character in the entire story. So, for the rest of this video, because of that, we are operating on the basis that this mysterious character is not Shanks, it is someone else who happens to look exactly like Shanks. That being said, who is it? Well, I think the first assumption that we can make, like I've said previously in this video, is that this is a God's Knight. And there are a few reasons for me to make this claim. The first is that the first time we saw the God's Knight silhouettes, when Dragon was talking about them, the person who seemed like their leader, or at least who was at the front of the pack, has the exact same silhouette as Shanks does, and it is just 1-to-1. So it would make sense that this mysterious character who looks like Shanks is the leader of the God's Knights that we saw in that silhouette. It also makes sense because the God's Knights are the only group of antagonists, obviously apart from Imu, that have yet to been revealed in the story as we are encroaching into the final war. There has to be some place for them to be introduced if they are going to be important villains for the rest of the story. and Elbaf is going to be that place, so I think it makes sense for them to get introduced here. So we know the identity of this person is the leader or potentially the strongest member of the God's Knights, but why do they look like Shanks? What is their relationship to Shanks? Well, I think there are two possible scenarios here. Either Shanks as an evil brother / twin, or this is a Shanks clone. I'm just going to come out and say it here. I have zero evidence for this being or not being a Shanks clone. I just know that the concept of clones was put into the story in Egghead Island, so it's possible, which is why I mentioned it. For the rest of this segment of the video, we're going to examine the fact that this could be Shanks' twin. The most obvious reasoning for this being a relative of Shanks, perhaps a twin because they look exactly alike, is that we know Shanks has blood in the royal family, or at least in the Celestial Dragons already, with Figarland Garling. If you have not seen the connection between these two, I do not blame you because it was revealed in the film Red movie, but Shanks' last name is Figarland, and Figarland Garling is now a Gorosei member. We don't know if Garling is Shanks' father, his uncle, his grandfather, but we do know that they share a family name, so Shanks does have ties to Celestial Dragons. Which makes it even more possible, if he's related to Figarland Garling, that this new mysterious God's Knights member is also a son or nephew of Garling and is related to Shanks. I mean, they look exactly the same. We also know that Shanks was found on the Roger Pirates' boat after they left the God Valley incident, where there were tons of Celestial Dragons, including Figarland Garling, so it's possible that Garling's sons were both there and the Roger Pirates only ended up with one twin, and the other twin stayed with the Celestial Dragons. But there's actually another thing about this scene that clues us into Shanks potentially having a brother or twin. And I know this might be a stretch, but Shanks is wearing sun and moon pajamas in this scene where we find the Roger Pirates finding Shanks in a treasure chest. There are so many leaps you could make with just these symbols on his clothing, but the only connections that I'm going to make for now are that Garling very obviously represents the moon. I mean, he's literally rocking a moon haircut for some reason. And Shanks is very tied with sun symbolism because he's pushing Luffy to become the Pirate King, and is the reason Luffy is now the sun god because of his devil fruit. So there is that connection there. It's possible that we're going to get the Shanks twin scenario where Shanks is the sun twin pushing for the liberation of the world, and Shanks' twin is the moon twin where he's sort of remained on the side of the Celestial Dragons and is evil. So, Shanks has an evil twin who he was separated with at birth. Shanks managed to escape from the Celestial Dragons and become the man he wanted to be, and Shanks' twin was sort of forced to remain on that side of the world and has become evil and is now the leader of the God's Knights. What is the impact this will have on the story? Well, the first and most obvious thing is that Elbaf has been painted to be Shanks' island for as long as I can remember. With this mysterious Shanks twin showing up on Elbaf, are we going to get a clash between these two Shanks? I think it's a very deliberate choice from Oda to have this new Shanks twin appear on an island that was painted to be Shanks' arc since the beginning of the story. But does Shanks know about his twin? Are we going to get a Shanks on Shanks clash between these two characters at Elbaf? Or have they even been in touch before? There's so many questions I have about how a second Shanks coming to Elbaf is going to play out in the story. Another important impact this will have on the story is, which Shanks did Loki talk to? We know that red-haired Shanks, according to Loki, came down to the underworld of Elbaf to talk to Loki. This could very easily have been the evil twin Gorosei member Shanks, because how could you tell the difference if you didn't really know who Shanks was? They look exactly the same, and the only difference between them will probably be the scar and that one is missing an arm, but under that cloak you can't really tell. I think it's entirely possible that the Shanks that Loki is going to give Luffy information about won't be the red-haired Shanks we know, but this Gorosei Shanks, who looks like he's been to Elbaf before, to be honest. Also, speaking of Loki, right before this reveal, Loki is talking to this new mysterious character on the transponder snail about this terrible fear they both felt and how they're regretting they weren't able to do anything. I think the placement of this dialogue is so incredibly obvious right before the reveal of these two God's Knights members. Could Loki have had a run-in with these God's Knights members before, and was he completely overwhelmed by their power? I think everything points to Loki not actually being the main villain in this arc, and he'll probably end up being someone who is traumatized or even utterly defeated by these two new Gorosei members. And lastly, the most important thing, what does this mean for Luffy? I think someone with as good as observation haki as Luffy and someone who has looked up to Shanks for his entire life will immediately realize that this is not Shanks. but I really can't paint how the interaction will go. Will Luffy question who this person is and not attack them immediately because they look like someone who he idolizes? Or will Luffy immediately realize the danger that this person presents because of their strength level, and are we going to get a Luffy versus evil Shanks in Elbaf? There are so many new implications that an evil Shanks could have on the story that these are all I can think of, but I know there are thousands and thousands of things Oda could now do with this new plot device. So leave a comment, let me know what you think this will mean for the story, because I am really curious at what everyone thinks about this new incredible twist. And if you like this comprehensive breakdown, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what other things you want me to talk about going into the final saga, because we are going to have a lot to discuss as Elbaf develops into one of the greatest One Piece arcs that we have all been waiting for forever. Peace out.